Hello, and thank you again for joining us for the blog hop. I know I've been really shortlisted as far as talking to you, but I just want to get right to the readings. Okay, I just ran up my stairs. Chapter 13. Kallan sat among the fire's glow as Eric unrolled a map on the table in front of her. Bracing his weight on the back of her chair, the High Marshal leaned over Kallan's shoulder and tapped the lines that were the forest of Svandal. The inked etches on his hand moved with his finger in the orange light. The Leosaphar king have returned from the southern keep with the king, Eric said. Everything is on schedule. What are their numbers? Kallan asked, studying the marking that was the Leosaphar's keep positioned on the southernmost borders of Alfheim in the east. Dagon's advance there has decreased their numbers to 7,000, Eric said. The march back to Svandal has left them weak. They haven't the stamina to sustain a fight. They've secured their camp for the night, and our scouts report that most of them now sleep. Kallan shifted her gaze to the Leosaphar keep north of Gunir, marked in faded ink. And what of the Dark One? She asked, gazing up at Eric. A set of war braids framed his face. Eric pulled his hand from the map. Reports confirm he is still at the northern keep where you left him. And their numbers? Kallan asked. Do they look to recover and join King Rune at Svandal? Eric shook his head. The ruse was a success. The Dark One arrived, as you predicted. Scouts reported that he and his army left the northern keep before Gudrun's spell wore off. The Dark One rides now to Svandal. He carries word that everyone at the northern keep is dead. It will be another 2 days before the Dark One arrives. Kallan nodded. We'll be long gone by then. And King Rune? He suspects nothing, nor has he reason to. The diversions we implemented were successful in convincing Rune's scouts that we pulled back to Lorlenalin. Kallan stood, forcing Eric to stand upright. Absent-mindedly, she turned over the white Elton bracelet on her wrist. In the center of the room, the tall fire brazier crackled, exuding its warmth as she crossed the bare skins played on the floor of her tent. The table, a chair, and a suit of plain, unmarked armor composed her simple accommodations, along with a bed and a chest of clothes. Thick tapestries, woven from deep blues and gem-like greens, lined the walls beside the occasional standard hung on posts. They added the only color to the brown earthen room. Beside the map table, she had tucked away a box with a brass latch. Daggers, swords, and a shield covered her bed. What of the Dark One's scout? She asked, coming to stand beside the brazier and the woman in the room's center. Dispatched, Eric said. King Rune waits for word in Svandal, but assumes no more than the usual skirmishes happened at the northern keep. The Dark One believes our troops to the north have withdrawn to Lorlenalin. Kallan returned to the map table. Notify Dagon, she said. I want to depart before dawn. We must be in position and move in while they still sleep. We'll move the 12,000 in here. Kallan tapped a finger to the west of the word Svandal. And here, she said, tapping to the south of the words. I want Gudrun in position with them. What about the north side? Kallan shook her head. That side is too steep to climb and forms a natural barrier that closes them in. By leaving the east side open, they won't go desperate before they realize what's happened. What hour is it? The moon has arched, Eric said. Another 3 hours before dawn. Before dawn, Kallan muttered. Replaying the strategy over once more, Kallan returned to the fire. Orange light flickered across her face. Hours ago, she had blocked out the tension and unease felt by her warman. To her, this was a game, and she too clearly could see its end. In her mind, King Rune was already dead. Kallan. Kallan ignored the strain in Eric's voice. You know my thoughts on this, he said. It isn't too late to back down. Kallan took her eyes from the fire. We've been through this, Eric, Kallan said. I did not spend the past year aligning my men, risking my woman, and scoring Alfheim to find Rune's base in Svandal, all to be back out now. The effort hasn't been for naught, Eric said. You've showed the Leosaphar what you're capable of this past fortnight. In 4 days alone, you've sent Dagon's armies against Rune's southern keep, while Gudrun single-handedly wiped out the 4,000 to the north, giving you the chance to find Svandal. We can go home and spare the lives, recharge, replan, and strike again. I move now. We'll clinch this, she said. We have a chance to live without war. But why waste the lives when we have an opportunity to extend a hand for peace? It's been done, Kallan said, raising her voice. We've been to war, pulling back, offered peace, and sent out the army against the king's advancements, losing more numbers in the process. Thousands could have been saved if we simply moved when they should have ages ago. The troops are anxious, Eric said. Tension is on the rise. What with Kallan stared at Eric with a cold look of madness. Eric tightened his jaw. A hot ember in the fire popped, and Kallan relaxed her shoulders. I'm sorry, Kallan replied, and returned her gaze to the flames. Leave me. The rugs dampened Eric's heavy footsteps. and a cool breeze infiltrated the tent as he dropped the hide flap behind him. Orange light colored the room. Kallan stared into the fire, inhaling deeply. She pulled her attention back to the present situation and released a long sigh. The latched box beneath the table caught her eye. After rolling, wrapping, and storing the map, she pulled the box from the floor and emptied its contents into the table. Within moments, the rich aroma of sweet lavender, sage, and valerian root filled her tent. She positioned various herbs and bottles around a pestle and mortar alongside the trinkets and treasures she pulled from the box. As if her fingers moved without consciousness, Kallan swiftly distributed the powders among a collection of tiny bowls. With a firm hand, she began powdering and combining ingredients that she then sifted into folded packets. After a long quarter of an hour, Kallan looked up from her work. The troops outside were quiet, like the calm that always came before every storm. "Swandal," she whispered, and permitted her thoughts to wander to the king of Gunir. The opportunity was prime, the chance of failure slim. To see the face of the man who killed my father, not broken and beaten, but as king, as his men see him. "And then I'll kill him," she muttered. Eager anxiety filled her, and she decided. Throwing open the lid of the chest nestled at the foot of her bed, Kallan dug beneath her gowns and collected the lias of her apron dress, the cloak, and the pair of brooches she had secreted away. Placing her pouch onto the table, she stripped over her gown and dumped it over the back of the chair. "Gudrun can kill me later," she mused, pulling the plain brown dress over her chemise and fastening the straps of the brooches. After pulling the signet ring from her finger and the white bracelet from her wrist, she placed her mother's pendant on the table beside the ring. Wrapping the threadbare cloak around her shoulders, Kallan freed her hair and shuffled the contents of her pouch. She found the folded packet among the contents almost immediately and scrutinized the brown powder she poured into her hand like sand. More than enough for 2 applications and Astrid. Bringing her hand to her lips, Kallan blew the powder into the air. With her palm still open, she muttered a spell under her breath. Golden seithe rolled from her hand in puffs of cloud. It enveloped the powder, then carried it up and around her like a blanket as Kallan whispered the words, all before the powder could waft to the ground. She whispered until a layer of seithe wrapped and concealed her. Pushing aside the tent's hide flap, Kallan peered into the dock of our camp. Soldiers said little as they hovered around fires. Some sharpened swords while others slept, eager to catch a few hours of sleep before battle. In the distance, too far to see, a rigid laugh cut the U-8 in the air. Eric was right. Tension was high. Several paces away, Kallan spotted Dagon with Eric. The black runes that began on Eric's knuckles stretched up his arms and across his shoulders down to the curve of his back. Dagon shoved a nervous hand through his red hair as he listened to Eric's report. Gudrun was nowhere in sight. With a deep breath, Kallan slipped into the camp and rounded her tent to the trees where Astrid grazed beside his tethered tree. Kallan held her breath and waited. Once she was certain her passing had gone unnoticed, she made her way to her horse. "Shh." Kallan hushed as the stallion snorted. After enclosing Astrid in the same blanket of seithe that concealed her, she pulled herself into the saddle and rode from the Dokkofa camp to Svandal. Okay, thank you very much, and there will be another 2 postings tomorrow. Thank you.